The following seminar was recorded live at the Los Angeles Sheraton Hotel on Sunday, April 14th, 2002. And now from the Foundation of Human Understanding, here is Roy Masters.
Hello. Good morning. Hello, hello, hello. I think we're going to have about this many again before half an hour is up, but thank you for coming. We just give a few minutes while everybody settles down, and I appreciate everybody in the back. Come forward. I said you need to come within spitting distance, spraying distance. You get baptized, you know. Sometimes it's mulling over in my mind where to begin, because such a vast subject. But at the same time, life is very simple. It's so simple that it's hard, because the ego evolves from challenge. And so if everything is easy, there's no glory. You see? And so, but the trouble is, the evolution of glory is sin. I had lunch with some friends, dinner with some friends last night, and he has a Japanese car, a beautiful driving car, and I said, boy, they really understand the science. Their science is the same as our science. Why isn't their hearts? Why aren't our hearts all the same? Science is all the same to scientists. If it's real science, Japanese, German, Israeli, Palestinian, science is the same, it's truth. How comes we don't have a truth for all of us? How comes we have different truths? There is only one truth. And therefore, by that truth, you know all other truths. You can't be deceived. Or if you are deceived, it's because you're not close enough to it. So don't blame God or anyone, just blame yourself that you are deceived. You see? You have those weaknesses that allows for it. So every time you get involved with somebody or something and things go wrong and you trusted somebody, there's a selfish motive there. Am I correct? Right. There's always a little something you thought you were going to get out of that. And they got you through it. And so I believe that the kingdom of heaven on this earth will come about when people from every race and color and creed come, and there are people from every race and color and creed right here. I come from England, and my father came from Russia, and some of you ancestors come from Africa, some from the Bronx. You see, that's a country in itself. Anyway, the thing is that something has gone wrong with the world, and we all have different truths, we have different cultures, we have different ways of looking at things, but there's only one way of looking at it, not two ways of looking at it, as the fly said as he walked on the mirror. Some of you missed that. There's only one way of looking at everything, and that is through an inner light that should illumine every heart. And the only thing that's wrong with us is that we don't see with that light. Now, that light makes us all human. And without that light, you can see things different ways. You could be made to see things different ways. You have two minds. One is a consciousness. That consciousness is not your body. You are not your body, you're not your thoughts. Your brain is like an animal brain, except highly sophisticated, capable of much more. But within that is another self. Within the self, it is sort of like fits within the same framework. It's spiritual. Therefore, it coexists in that body. We are different from all the other creatures to that degree, but we have a soul or a spirit. Now, I know a lot of animal lovers think that their animals and pets have souls, but they don't. You can make your pet into a shaggy god and put him on a pedestal. And this dog always loves you the way you are. But then you find that there's all kinds of cultures that love monkeys and snakes and rats, and they worship them, and cows. And because they make gods to accept them as a god, to give them a sense of being a deity, to give them a sense of something that they really cannot be. Because the real problem with life is ego. Man trying to be God, and that's what separates you from God, and that's what makes you vulnerable to that which separates. In other words, the problem of the human race, the only problem it has is something called doubt. In other words, in the story of the Garden of Eden, I'm jumping all over the place, and I'm going to come back to all these pieces as the day goes by. But if you look at the story of the Garden of Eden, therein lies the mystery. If you could diagnose that, if you can analyze that, if you can read into that what is really there, you will see that that's your problem once removed. In the typical man-woman relationship, if you look at the man-woman relationship in the story of the Garden of Eden, there's man with a consciousness. And only a man can think himself God because he has a soul. See? And what is the choice between good and evil? There has to be a choice between good and evil because there's a purpose of life in the choice. A dog can only be a dog. And maybe he can evolve if you believe in evolution. I call it adaptation. You see, the dog will just take a different shape of a dog. One's a poodle and one's a Dachshund, you know. But the thing is, it's still a dog. A dog can never be any more than a dog, but a human being can aspire to be more than a human being because he has a soul. And what can he aspire to be more than a human being is a God. And so therein lies the secret of the departure from God to be God. And so that's called in modern terms ego. And ego is man playing God. And that's every one of us likes to believe that we're God, even though you don't know that you're doing that. And the reason why you don't know you're doing that is because the very state of playing God is the denial of God, and the only way you can understand that you're not playing God is to know Him. And if you are playing God, you're in denial of God. I know this sounds convoluted, but if you're God, you don't want to know any other God greater than yourself. If you knew there was a God greater than yourself, you couldn't be God. So this is called denial. Now, in the story of the Garden of Eden, it goes like this. There's Adam in the paradise, a perfect paradise. And you see, paradise begins in the mind or it's lost in the mind. Your paradise will come back in the spirit. Not your mind so much, but I call that spirit mind just for the sake of, understanding it a little better. The mind, as I talk about, is the spiritual self, not your brain. Your mind, the mind of God is spiritual. The mind of a person is the soul, you see. And that soul has intimate relationship with God so long as it does not aspire to be what it should not be. That's the forbidden. Now, the reason, this is important to understand this, the reason why that God has made a man in His image and give him a consciousness. Our consciousness is the only consciousness that exists among all other things. If there was there's an old saying, if a tree falls into the forest and there's no one there to see it, would it really fall? Is your television really on if you're not home? You know, did the dinosaurs exist? Yes, they did. But who was there to witness it? You see? And so that's called creation. I see in creation a creator. You see, and it testifies to that. It is something wonderful about having an awareness of a God and then seeing all the wonders He's created and then adventuring through all the wonders and understanding all the wonders, that being the reward of the journey of obedience. But in the journey of disobedience, everything goes in the opposite direction. And now the reason why we are created with a choice between good and evil. And now I'm saying, even though I'm saying we're having a choice between good and evil, we don't have that choice. I'm saying we do, but we don't. Bear with me. Only the first pair had the choice. We are born subject to that choice. It's called being born in sin. The Bible's correct. The Bible is correct. We're born subject to the conditions of our forefather. Now, if God had made I'm coming to the reason why we're created. If He had made all these pairs and said, of all the trees you may freely eat, these are except that one. You can have anything you want. He made it very simple. All the things you want, but that one you shouldn't. That's the fruit of disobedience. That's the fruit of discontent. Now look at your relationship with your wife or your husband. The same relationship exists, except you're born once removed. We do not have original choice, but women have that discontent. Women have that discontent because and therefore politics can approach that. The body politic is the once removed serpent of the garden operating. Break down the family. Appeal to the female's discontent. To be dominated. To have something greater than herself. She also has an ego. And the only way that the serpent can operate is operating through that discontent. And the only way the woman can operate through the man is through his discontent. You see, if you're happily married, if you're really happy with what you got, a gentleman, and a friend of yours says, let's go to Tijuana and have some fun with the girls. What do you say? I'm happily married, thank you. If you're not happily married, it's a good idea. If that's See? The principle is the same. You cannot be approached. Temptation cannot work if you don't have that discontent. Now, the trouble is, we're all born with an ego, but we don't understand our ego because we've never had the original understanding. We've never fallen from the original understanding. But what we have is a potential of return to paradise. And that's what's called, that potential is called salvation. You see? And so it follows us all the way through our lives, but we are born subject to our environment. And the reason why we have to suffer like this, because we need to be discontented with the way we exist, and cry out as if to say, something's wrong with the way I exist. You see, and you may not know what the machinery is. Who was it that with a beautiful mind? And he says, I can fix everything. I've been trained to solve problems, but I can't solve my own. The human spirit cannot solve its own problem. It's got to be saved from a problem it doesn't quite understand. But there's a beauty. I know I'm being very spiritual to start with, but there's a beauty to all this, because had God said to Adam and Eve, eat of the fruit, you shall surely die, and he would have died the death completely, he would have made other pairs over and over again, and he knew in his wisdom, everyone, there would never be a human race, and the experiment, the creation of a children of light would be forever extinguished. It would never happen, because he could never know what he was getting into. Your children can never know what they're getting into. They need your wisdom. But they even rebel against, their egos even rebel against you. You see, even if you're a good person, they can rebel. They can rebel against the goodness because they want to do their own thing. They want to find it out themselves. It happens. You see? And so, the God in his wisdom made it, he's creating children. A human being is the ideation, it is the crowning glory of the spiritual, and a marriage of the spiritual and the physical. I mean, there's nothing like it in this universe. And I would like to come back to the science in a minute, but because that's another beautiful thing. It's how you understand God and all the other principles. But it's ideation. It's the perfect creation and a reflection of the Creator. It's higher than the angels, if you like. And the reason why human beings can be saved, by the way, I'm just throwing these bits and pieces in if you don't mind. The reason and evil cannot, is because we have a body which contains the fall. Spirits, when they fall to the floor. But human beings have a body to contain the fall. So therefore, Adam didn't die right away. He died spiritually, see? He got ahead into our life. The future is eternal life. Even for us. But we have to be saved from this one. And we must be discontent for this one. And we must be discontent with this one as Adam was discontent with the other one. It's a reverse order, you see, of things. And so now, you understand what it means to be born in sin now. Generations after generations after generation, women still play the same role. Except they become nurturers of the male ego. They become nurturers. Because you see, if you look at the drug, if you take a drug addict, or one man who's not yet a drug addict, and you seduce him, a young man is angry with his father, discontent. Angry with his family, discontent. He has conflict. The seducer approaches. The moment he takes the forbidden fruit, the moment he takes he's not the same person anymore. He has fallen out of favor with his parents. But it goes further. The fallen state is now a new condition. He's become a different person. He's taken on the identity of that which has corrupted him. So therefore, it's become his God. So the danger of becoming a God in ego terms is once you fall, you lose your identity, the original identity, and you take on the identity of the corrupter. The corrupter becomes your God. And you start to seek love from what corrupts you. And so therefore, men look to women for support. But I always say, behind every man, there's a great woman. Behind every great man, there's a great woman. I always say, what's behind her? Because you're dealing with spiritual forces. You're not just dealing with women. You're not dealing with men. You're dealing with men that cry out to be mothered. They don't understand what their condition is. Eve created the first ego. Through her came the idea that man is a god. But the idea that man is a god comes from a woman. But how does she get the power? How does she get the power to do that? She wasn't born to be a temptress. Only because her own discontent. See, in the story of the Garden of Eden, Adam didn't approach, the serpent didn't approach Adam. He approached that which was furthest from God. It is man's responsibility to love God in such a way as to protect the woman from that world. Not use her to support his rebellion. And that's exactly what's going on in our lives. When we get married, that's what is the attraction. We fall in love. Men fall in love with women, and women fall in love with love. They fall in love with power, with a sense of importance. And the devil gets them both. Now, you don't see the devil, but maybe you'll see him here today. Usually in an audience of 400 or 500 people, I don't know if we're going to get 400 or 500 people today, but usually we get 3 or 4 people that you can actually see it there. It come to the surface. And it's like something like you see in The Exorcist. Maybe that's the reason why we don't have so many people. All the people that could have exercised, they'd stayed home. Now, having established all that, we're talking about temptation. We're talking about what the temptation is. It's temptation to pride, and women give birth to bodies as well as egos, and therefore women have never known what true love is. The average woman has. I don't know many women who have ever known what true love is, because the first man failed, and she gives birth to men, and if she gives birth to men with egos through her, then she comes from a long line of Eves, which is rooted to that original scene. And so therefore she's never been loved. She never had, pardon the expression, she's only been screwed. It's rude, I know, excuse me, but that's the only, and men and women don't know the difference between being screwed and being loved. To them it's the same thing. You see, what men have never loved a woman, they only loved her for her mothering quality, her nurturing quality. And therefore men draw up from her what's not good for women to give. You see, but men fall in love for that. Just like you fall to a pusher. You get tempted by a pusher, and all of a sudden you need the reinforcement of what the pusher is and what the pusher has done to you, because it's who you are. And so therefore men cry and crave the love of a female. And the men draw up from a woman, draw up through her what's not good for her to give. It's unnatural. And if she gives it to him, he's in greater conflict because he falls further. He has anxiety. How does he deal with anxiety? The same way as a drug addict deals with anxiety. He wants more. The more he gets, the more conflict he gets. Damned if he gets it. And then if he doesn't get it, if the woman rebels from having to play that role, he feels like the rug's pulled away from under him and he gets angry. He tries to find another woman to play that role. Damned if he gets it. Damned if you don't. Nothing but suffering. And that's how hell comes into this world. Men, it's all men's fault. It's not a woman's fault. So in case you've heard me blame women, it is the fault of a man, and it's the duty of a man to find himself and to learn to love a woman properly. But he cannot love a woman properly until at the hands of a woman he suffers. Women will make a man suffer. Isn't that right, gentlemen? Yeah, and rightly so. Because through her comes suffering. You're asking for it. You see? You're literally asking for hell on this earth. Now, you have some women who are really wicked, and you have some men who are really wicked. You could have a good woman living with a really wicked guy. And you can have, a really decent woman, and he has no tolerance for her goodness and tries to destroy her. You have a really wicked lady and a good man, and he is no longer a slave. He wakes up one morning and he's no longer playing the game, and there's something in her that's terribly threatened because she's used to his, taking it out of his hide. She's used to the power that he gave her, and therefore she hates him more. A woman like that can deal with a wimp. She can live with a wimp because she knows how to get her flesh, about a pound of flesh. She gets her life force from the wimp by his appeasement. She gets this. She maintains the power and the glory from that. See, the contempt that she enjoys. And then if she has a beast, if the man is violent, if she's smart, she knows how to handle that because she'll drive him to drink. He'll end up in jail. She'll end up with the kids, and she'll rule over the kids and ruin the kids, make them worship her. She'll rule the roost. You've seen all that before, haven't you? You see, you've been through all that. A lot of you have. And I'm assuming that those of you who are here have been victims of that, and you've suffered by that, and you know there's something wrong with the way you exist in your relationship with each other, but you understand the cure of the problem is a different relationship with your wife and your husband. This doesn't mean to say the problem is going to be cured, because you may have a really rotten egg for a husband, a really rotten egg for a wife. But that's nothing. Or you may have a good person for a husband and a good person for a wife, but you'll never know who that is. You can't tell which one is a really good one with a bad conditioning. All they need is love. All you need is to hold up a light, but how can you hold up a light if you don't have it? See, that is the antidote. The light is the antidote. And that light can only, that power to be able to survive and redeem others can only come by the reunion with your Creator. In Christian terms, it's called salvation. Now, when Christ came, I'm starting off religion, but I'll get to the psychology in just a little bit. You know, I'm Jewish. I'm not sure if I am or not yet. I haven't looked lately. But I understand the need for salvation, because a man, and why it can't be a woman. A man must do what a man failed to do. You see, it's not a woman's job to do the saving. It's a man's job, and to love his wife and to repent of his relationship, of his ego and pride. Isn't that what you see when you meditate? You start to see the ego, you start to see the folly of your ways, and then you start to be humbled, and then you have a little repentance and you have a tear, and then all of a sudden you're not the same person anymore. You see? And all of a sudden you don't need the rules and the laws. Thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal. If there were no laws like that, you still wouldn't do anything wrong, because it wouldn't be your nature to do it. You see, a dog is a dog, and a dog can't be a person. And a great white shark can't be a porpoise, nor a porpoise be a great white shark, because they have a program, and they can't deviate from the program. Only the spirit of man can deviate from the program. And the programming is a life force by the love of the Creator, and a loyalty. But those loyalties, that loyalty can be subverted to other loyalties. So you're born in a cannibal society, there's a cannibal king. You're born in Palestine or in the West Bank, then Yasser Arafat will be a god. Or you're born in Iraq, then Saddam Hussein will be what you worship and who you take your identity from. You have to worship, you have to give yourself. What I'm trying to say, emphasize so many different ways, is that the idea that your God is an illusion. The reality follows you all the way to the grave as conscience. It looks like the enemy because you've fallen to the enemy. In other words, you cherish the illusion. Most people live in an illusion that there's something that they're not always looking for validation for that. What gives you the validation is the agent of that which was in the garden. All the way from that one point. The whole human race is rooted to that one spot. You see? So that you're looking for validation for a fallen nature, but you do not know you're falling. You think you're rising. Every high is a new low. Oh, we got a disease now. Manic depressive. Bipolar. You know, they got all kinds of names for that condition of conflict. The high and the lows, the depressions, the hopelessness. Well, every hope becomes hopeless. It's false. You can't have real hope, you have to have false hope. All hope is false. All the images of yourself are fake. And that fake always crumbles as if you're fortunate. If you're blessed, the light of understanding follows you as conscience all the way to the grave, even though you may hate it. Even though you may think your conscience is an enemy, it's really your friend. And even though you think your friend is a friend, it's really an enemy. Because a friend, all your friends are traitors, and your lovers are betrayers. Everybody who loves you in that condition. But then you love to be loved in that condition, don't you? You look to be loved for what you are. And what you are is ego. And therefore, damned if you get love, damned if you don't. You see? If you don't get it, you feel rejected. What does this mean, rejected? God is rejected. God is angry. But God is angry, but since you're not God, you feel guilty for being angry. You see? Now look at these two things. The evidence that you're God. The evidence is twofold. What is a God but a king and a judge? A moral judge of right and wrong, good and evil. People who love you, well, they're pretty good people. And people who reject you, or who see you as you are evil. And you hate them. So it's called love-hate. You love those who love you, and Jesus said, what profit you to love those who love you? Do not thieves and robbers love thieves and robbers? So you do not understand, because for a while you won't. For a while, the only life you know, and the only life you've been born to know at that point, except for one thing, conscience. Something, a saving grace that follows you all the way to the grave. You do not know what that is yet. Because all you know is your impulses is towards men, towards women, and women to playing the female. All the wonderful attention she gets, all that's power. See, so women give the men the idea that they're men when they're making monkeys out of them. See? They give them the illusion in exchange for power. You see? And so they both get the drug pusher. It's the same thing. Look, the drug pusher. The drug pusher gets the power, the money. The addict, what does he get? The illusion of worth. But they both become worthless. The drug addict, by calling upon the pusher, is actually calling upon the worst in him. Is that right? And what happens? It's the underworld. What does the drug world represent but drug lords of the underworld? And what would the drug pushers all do if they had to vote? They'd elect drug lords, and cannibals would elect cannibal kings. They would elect that which sustains them, that which glorifies, and they would empower that to keep the illusion going. You see? The illusion of worth, which is worthless. And that is a life that leads to death. And everybody's on that path, no exception. It's called being born in sin. And in other words, to put it in modern parlance or psychological parlance, it is born subject to your conditioning. Subject to the culture. If you're born in Borneo, you'll be a cannibal. All of you be, bones through your nose right now. And you wouldn't know any different, because they'd make sure you didn't know any different. Because it would threaten the whole system. And look, when Jesus was here, look, a beautiful man like this, they want to kill him. Why? Because he represents a kingdom. He represents the light that Adam lost. He represents the man that we should be, but we're not. But look at the justice of this. The first man, only the first man had the choice. And his choice was downward. And in God's wisdom, all choices would be downward, and therefore there'd be no human race. We had to learn through all the things we suffer. What is our choice? We suffer. And our existence is nothing but suffering and tragedy. And what does that do to us? Some of us hate our existence. Hate reality. We curse God and die. You know, I was, just give you a little, I know I'm hammering away at this, but a friend of mine passed away the other day, and I went to visit him in the nursing home. And those nursing homes look like warehouses for the walking dead. They're not even walking, they're in wheelchairs. How do people get that way? I don't know. Hope I don't get that way. Got a few years to go, I haven't get twisted yet. But something inside is twisting every part of them. But a man sitting in a chair like this, and I see him from a distance, ugly, twisted, with a lady, I assumed his wife. And when I went past, I always got something to say. You need to help him quit smoking. And then I realized she was smoking with him. Enable her to the end. Just sitting. So the next day, there's another man sitting in a wheelchair, uglier than ever. Uglier than we both put together. I said, God will get you for that. He says, go tell it to the mountain. I said, you'll be a mountain pretty soon if you're not getting it. I'm not sorry for these people. I'm not sorry for them. Bitter, denying to the end. And most people in that nursing home don't even know they're dying because they're so lost in their head they don't know anything. They're already dead. Life is a continuous desire for unconsciousness. And there's something about the unconsciousness that makes you feel conscious. You see, it's very weird. Because every high is emotionally induced, chemically, emotionally induced, so you get rid of the consciousness that says you're dying, and you get a feeling that gives you the idea you're living. But it's a denial. Everything that makes you feel alive is a reinforcement of that original sin. Denial. You do wrong, you deny that you're wrong. You do wrong, you deny that you're wrong. You can drink to forget some guilt. Then you drink to forget the guilt of drinking. Then you drink to forget the guilt of drinking to forget the guilt of drinking. And then you feel even more guilty because every time you drink to forget the guilt, you're saying no to salvation. No, I won't wake up. Yes, I will be. I will be what I want to be. Leave me alone. I don't even know what hell is I want to be, but I want to be it. See? And so, after a while, you don't even know what the original guilt was. Then you not only drink, but you take drugs. I mean, the temptations are always there as you go from paradise to hell. There's always somebody who's just ahead of you, someone who understands your weakness and loves the power. There's always some dark underworld, shadowy, slinky individual who understands how to deal with your discontent and make you feel better and give you ideas that are not good. Now we're going to come to the psychological part. Today's talk is on hypnosis, the hypnosis of life. And you see, what we're dealing with here are two aspects of our nature we're dealing with. Animals only have one. We have two. One part of us is animal, and it's suggestible. You can train a dog. You can train a sea lion. You can make it do what it wants. It's very limited. Human beings are highly talented, and therefore you can turn them into human bombs if you want to. You can make a person believe anything you want. And the only way you can make a person believe anything you want is to get rid of conscience. And to continuously destroy the spirit of that person. Now I want to say something about this before I go on. Most of you sitting here are special people. And I'm not saying that to blow smoke up you're nowhere. You see, you are special people because you understand something. You know that there's something wrong with the way you exist. Look, why isn't the whole of Los Angeles here? Yeah. Don't I have 20,000 people listening every quarter of an hour? Maybe they don't need me. Maybe they're better or something. But do you know that most people don't know there's anything wrong with them because they're too busy with the smorgasbord of all the different supports? I mean, if you're an alcoholic, you know that you may know you're an alcoholic. I'm not sure you know you're an alcoholic because you're so unaware by drinking that you don't even know that you're drunk. I mean, that's how bad it is. But most people have a smorgasbord. The strategic drink, the strategic smoke, the strategic planned sexual escapade, the program you're going to watch. You're always thinking ahead, what pleasure is next for the king? See? So you don't let a beat go by before you're planning your next pleasure. See? The king or queen's pleasure. And so we look normal. So we have a society, we have a smorgasbord of everything. Food, sex, drugs, music, television. We're surrounded by reinforcement. We do not know from Gunisht. I know that's Jewish, but it means for nothing. We don't know from nothing that people don't know there's anything wrong. They're living their life, and you see them in the parking lots, you see them in the malls, bloated, ugly, fat, wobbly, little trolls under a bridge. Some of you look like that now. With that, we'll take care of that. You know it, and you see you're not insulted. Because if I said the same things, if I stopped one of those people in Walmart and said, you look a fat, blubbery troll under a bridge, I can say that to you because you know it's the truth and you can laugh at it. I can say that because you know it and you're not offended and there's a little humor to it, and that's healthy. If I can tell you the truth and you don't hate me for it, you're on the way of getting better. Do you know that? You see, that's the problem when you tell people that you're fat. They resent you for it. It's the truth. And then little children say, I have a grandson, very honest. He's 4 years old. He was 4 years at the time. And so they're standing in Walmart, and this woman this big, with a behind this big. He said, Mom, that woman's got a huge butt. It happened to be true. But she couldn't handle it from a little child. A little child doesn't see anything wrong with the truth. See? Anyway, now let me get back to this hypnosis thing. And I will go back to the Garden of Eden. And you'll see why in a minute. Because I know that man is a fallen being. Other creatures are created differently. But man is the ideation of creator, and he falls away. And we don't evolve, we devolve. The human race devolves. But of course, some of us at some point begin to involve again. We start to return to dignity. We become saved. So you see, the human race is being divided into two groups. You know, the killers, the murderers, you see them. You know what I'm speaking about. I mean, they could be a next-door neighbor. Mean-spirited people, and then there's good people, decent people who are on their way to being good. They're not perfect, but they're on the way to that, you see. And those two forces are juxtaposed to each other. Right now we have a war going on in the Mideast. And we've had a couple of wars, basically. I remember I was in the Second World War. America, bright country, decent people, not all, but generally decent people. A country with good laws of the heart, laws on the heart, which should be on everybody's the books. I say that again. The laws on the books that should be in everybody's heart, but that's still a good society if you have the laws on the books that are in the heart. That keeps the bad people from plundering you. You see? And so we had a war between the Axis powers, Germany, fascism, crazy people, mad, all following this god, the Führer. A sick nation, totally mesmerized. Man, they created their own God to glorify their failings. And so when you glorify people, when you love people wrong, they do more wrong. And when they do more wrong, they are guilty. But when they're guilty, their Führer will say, well, we love you just the way you are. If you love someone the way they are, they get worse. When they get worse, they get more guilty. When they're more guilty, they need your love. And that's what this evil God does. And so if you can't do the right thing in such a society because only wrong is the law. It's the law of the underworld. They only love you for your rottenness. They can't profit from a good person. You can't rule a sovereign people. You cannot rule a nation which has a high ethical tone. You can't rule a person who has a high ethical tone. Can't be done. That's why you have to destroy the spirit. Now we come back to the Garden of Eden now. Here's the psychology of it. I've discussed the spiritual part of it. Now let's look at the same thing in the psychological aspect of it. You know what trauma is? You know what post-traumatic stress syndrome is? It's post-hypnotic stress syndrome. A person in Vietnam, I usually use the same example. Because of the trauma induced by war, he becomes imprinted he becomes changed by what imprinted him. And therefore, the sound of it, the look of it, the smell of it, reinforces what it has done to him. You see? Now, original sin is trauma. Now we're taking it from a different... In the Garden of Eden, there were... You're going to understand hypnotism in just a little bit. You'll understand it. That in the Garden of Eden, you have this scene. You have man, you have the woman, and you have the guy with the horns, except the serpent, represented by the serpent is symbolic, because, as I said, politics could be the ones to remove serpents, plural, of the garden, understanding the same weaknesses of men and women. And therefore, that's why America is falling, because we are losing it. These people are highly sophisticated. They know more about the Garden of Eden thing than we do, because they represent how can I say this? It's almost like they're born, people who are sociopaths or psychopaths, they're born with the inverse or reverse knowledge. They intuitively know how to seduce, how to exploit their victims to the nth degree. It's almost they come born with it. We haven't yet found ours. We only know through their action on us and the suffering they can impose upon us that there's something wrong with the way we exist, but we haven't made our contact yet. Therefore, we will be victims until we actually cry in pain for something. We want to be good, but we don't know what it is. We try giving in, we try going along, we try appeasing, and then we try being mad, and then we find we're just as bad as they are, right or wrong. You see, we're trying everything because every time you react like an animal. You don't react like a human being. Your reactions always serve the beast. Your reactions serve the beast, because when you respond, you obey. When you respond, you obey. You're born as a responsive person, like a conditioned reflex beast. You can't help yourself. Damned if you give in, and damned if you fight back. See? And so you can only lose in this world without salvation. Now we're coming back to the idea of salvation again. See? So here we have this idea of conditioned reflex response. But how did it begin? Well, as long as Adam held fast to his paradise, to what God says, of all the trees you may freely eat, But the fruit, the tree of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall not eat. For the day you eat of it, you shall surely die. And the serpent says through Eve, but God lies. You won't die. You'll be a man. You'll be a God. Now there it is, right there. That's the appeal. That's what we're born with. But we're going to examine the psychology of it. We're going to look at the psychology. We understand the spirituality of it, but we need the psychology of it. We need the reflexology of it, see, which I'd like to explore with you. Every how can I say this? The original sin was a trauma. Even today, if somebody seduces you and makes the forbidden look enticing, and you go for it, it becomes another trauma. It's a reinforcement. It's the same game. In other words, there's what the seducer does is to appeal to your soul. But how does he appeal to your soul? He appeals to your intellect. He appeals through the senses. He has access to that now. We're born subject. We are born subject to that system. That's why it's so difficult. See, we had no original choice. But the original choice was a trauma. Because whatever separates us from our ground of being is a shock. See, it's exciting. It looked good to the eyes. And see, so therefore there are two kinds of shocks. There is the love shock. Oh, you're so wonderful. And so I'll stop here for a moment, because in the lost books of the Bible and the pseudepigrapha, which has many of the books that are missing from the Bible, in the Testament of Dan, as I said the other night, Dan is talking to his children, and he gathers them around his bed as he's dying, and he's giving him an inheritance, not money, wisdom. He says, if anybody praises you as a holy person, don't be uplifted. That's ego, see? Because it produces a trauma. Love is a traumatic thing. It hooks you. You understand when somebody loves you? Love at first sight is love at first bite. See? So, love, when it's not real, when it has a design to it to uphold, nurture, women are good at that. Men love that. That's the love of the world. The love of the world makes you an enemy of God, rejection. So that's what you inherit, this need. This is why you have to overcome your need for love. Because your need for love is egotistical. It maintains the status quo, you see? So the first appeal to that is a traumatic experience. Now, the fall, just like if the drug pusher comes to your son and appeals to his discontent with you, the minute that appeal is made and he falls for it, you don't know your son anymore. You don't know your daughter anymore. After that moment, he's not the same person. He has different loyalties. He's no longer loyal to you. Whatever loyalty there was, the discontent has separated him from you or her from you, and now he belongs to that which is seduced. And his identity is centered in that. The sense of who he is must continuously come from that, and he must serve that person. But he doesn't. He sees that. He doesn't see it as service. He sees it as love, because he now has a need for whatever it is that made him what he is. He needs more of it. See, so that now needs nurturing. That's compulsion, and so when Adam falls from grace, in the environment, now remember the Vietnam situation with the backfiring of the bus, all the elements. Let me backtrack here. If a woman, this is my favorite, I don't have different ways of saying it, I have one way of saying it, so I refine it more every time. If a girl young woman is raped in the back seat of a red Chevrolet, on a Friday afternoon or Friday night at 12 midnight, and it's raining, by a man with a gray beard and blue eyes. I'm trying to add as many situations into the mix. Then every one of those objects in the scene of the crime has influence over her for the rest of her life. So, if a man, if she's raped at 7 or 8 years old, she may forget the issue, but she may have resented it and sort of buried it. However, that's working. That's what working. And so therefore, if a man, when she has reached sexual maturity, for example, suddenly with a red beard, with blue eyes, with a red Chevrolet, and if he's 50 years old, all those elements would immediately cause one of two reactions: attraction or aversion, mostly attraction. Because there's something about a need for that which corrupted. And it doesn't have to be the same person. You transfer it to your husband. You transfer it to a friend. You transfer your subservient to somebody you work for. Do you understand these things, ladies and gentlemen? It's called transference. You hate your father. Or you have a mother that wasn't good for you, but you had a love-hate relationship with your mother. She manipulated you, but you needed her. So you grow up without who you are. You are what she is. Now look carefully. Her lips, her voice. Phone sex, anybody? You understand that? The seductive voice. Do you understand the word of God in your heart is wordless? And do you understand the conflict between the word in the heart and language? Language is very powerful. It's more powerful than the wordless word of your heart. See, that's why language is so powerful, and the world is ruled by rhetoric, lies. Sometimes downright lies. If you watch the Palestinian situation, common sense says, who's the victim? Yeah, but there are people who don't love. These are not perfect people. But they are really the victims, and they don't want, you can see they don't want war. They want to live in peace. They really want to be friends. But then you have these nasty people who have no tolerance for their goodness. And even, as I was saying, you were special, and I forgot to tell you why. Because when you were born, when you came into the world, I guarantee you, most of you here were picked on and singled out for destruction because you weren't like the rest of the family. You didn't give in. You were who you were, and you didn't even know that's what was wrong with you. See, now the reason why you fell, because you thought there was something wrong with you, because after all, everybody else thought there was something wrong with you. You were a problem in school. You were a troublemaker. You just didn't know that your innocence there's something in you that made you special. Now, why you were special, I don't know. Why the rest of your family went to hell, that's their business. Because a lot of them, am I making sense? A lot of your family goes to hell, right? They don't understand you. They're not family anymore. And Jesus says, think not that I've come to bring peace, but a sword, division. Father-in-law, son against a mother, father against daughter, or whatever. He says one's enemies will be those of one's own household. You see? So therefore, family is not necessarily kin. I'm your family. You see, people like yourself are family. Regardless of race, color, and creed, we have to understand that, you see. And so it's really a spirit. But you see where I'm going with this now, that from that very moment, and this translates it passes from generation to generation, a woman's power passes from generation to generation because men come from her. And egos come from her. Therefore, they go to her for reassurance. Boys are bonded. Children are bonded to their mothers, not to their fathers. The fathers have a difficult time. They've got to find their God in order to be believed, in order to have credibility in the eyes of their children. Otherwise, he's just one of their children. She's the matriarch. And if he wants to get his power back, he has to be violent. But that doesn't do him any good either. You see, he can try seducing, but it doesn't become a man to seduce. Because you see, they can't do it. They can't be a woman. A man has a different aura. A man has a different quality about him. He's supposed to. But if he needs the love of a woman, like the children, that makes him one of the children. An object of contempt in the eyes of the family. Even the children will hate him. They'll hate him for being weak, being one of the kids. Yes, mother. No, mother, as if his wife was a mother. And they hate him for being a beast, trying to get his power back, because he becomes a beast, trying to get he's not going to get anywhere, because the children recognize there's a spiritual missingness. You see? So, getting back to the point. In that scene, there's the female form, there's the mouth, the lips. That's why do you think men want to go for those lips? What is this about lips? They work on those lips. See? It's because hell comes from that. Lies. Sweet nothings. Support for ego. Oh, you handsome man, you. Right? See that? It's reinforcement. It is the spoken word. It's the spoken word, but it doesn't have to be a spoken word from a woman. It can be a spoken word from a dictator. It's spoken words. It's language. You have fallen to language. And language lies. Language twists. You can make wrongs look like rights, and rights look like wrongs. And wrong people, wicked people, hate good people. So therefore, if a good person is standing up for himself, bad people will hate him. In other words, how can I say this? You believe bad about good people. See, you believe bad, so therefore you have the people who will say bad things about you, and bad people want to believe bad things about you. Otherwise, they have to see the bad about themselves. You see? There's something that shines in a good person, see, that makes everybody uncomfortable. And if it makes everybody uncomfortable, therefore, since the people are creatures of comfort, and if you make people uncomfortable, therefore you must be bad. See? And so that's the war that's going on in this world. And the lines are drawn now. I think we're going to have a great war here, and it's unavoidable. And so what we have now in the Garden of Eden story, to bring this to a head, is you have man falling to the spoken word from the word in the heart. But also, if you notice what the scripture goes on to say, and when man fell from grace, they saw they were naked. Now what does that mean? Women don't notice any difference, but men do. What do you think he saw? Awareness? No? Himself. Yeah, he saw, and he had an erection. That's what he had. He essentially awakened. The whole reproductive system is perverted. It no longer has the sweetness and the love in the action. It has lust in the action. So you see, therefore, the sexual act becomes perverted. The seed, the relationship is in other words, it becomes a weakness rather than a strength. Well, the whole psyche is disturbed, you see. And so, you see all these different elements. And when we're coming to the hypnosis part of it, if you have a woman now who has been raped in the backseat of a bus with this man who's 50 years old with gray beard, with blue eyes, it only has to be a red car. It only has to be a red car to turn her on, because she's also awakened by that memory. She can forget it until that red car drives up in front of the house. Now that is a certain power, that red car. But if it's a a man with a beard, it strengthens it. And if it happens to be rainy one evening, that strengthens it more. She doesn't understand the power that lures her and draws her. She gives herself too easily to this man. Just like you might give yourself too easy to a man that's like your father, that brutalized you when you were a kid, see? You understand how that is? He drew you away from yourself by your anger towards him, see? Or he raped you or violated you in some way, seduced you in some way, and made you think there's something wrong with you that can only be made right by him loving you. Who understands that? See? There it is right there. But there is one thing, these are all conditioned reflex responses, and this is animal magnetism, and there's one other thing I haven't mentioned. A Svengali type of evil, because I practice hypnotism, and I can do the surface thing. You can transfer, I can get you to transfer to me. And not do you any harm, because I'm only playing with your intellect and your conditioning. For instance, later on I'm going to have some people come up here on the stage, and we're going to make them change their shoes around. I'm telling you ahead of time what we're going to do. And they're going to do it, and they're going to make an excuse for it. Because that's the first thing you do, is make an excuse. You don't like to admit that there's something greater, something's controlling you. So therefore you think, the psychotic person, which most people are to some degree, a psychotic person, you can preach to them the gospel, and he'll preach it back to you as if it's his own idea originating with him. And now he's teaching you. You see, psychotic people don't have their own thoughts, but they don't like to admit they don't have their own thoughts. You see, hardly anybody has their own thoughts. And you don't have to be psychotic. You see, you don't originate a thought in your head at all, because you're the collection of everything you've ever experienced all wrong, and your excuses are the same as everybody else. Your reasoning is the same as everybody else. And your solutions are the same as everybody else, and variations of the same thing, maybe 10 categories, who knows. Like the man that called the other night. He says, I used to be so angry at everybody, I used to plan my suicide, and that will teach him a lesson. I'll show my father and mother, I'll kill myself. That'll teach them a lesson. See, that's typical thinking. That's like every person who commits suicide goes through that thought. See? And if you're in China, you think the same thought. It'd be in Chinese. It comes to you in the language. The language of the... See? And he continues to seduce you. So when we're dealing not just with conditioning, but we're dealing with a Svengali kind of spirit. So therefore, what makes one person like a Bill Clinton, a Saddam Hussein? I couch Bill Clinton and Saddam Hussein and Adolf Hitler all in the same. See? Because they all, Idi Amin started out just like Bill Clinton, personable, friendly, and then became a dictator. And so what we're dealing with is a spirit. And so therefore, what makes one person very powerful is that he has that same spirit of the garden in him that knows how to manipulate those conditionings. And that is what we serve through those conditionings. Yes?
Yeah. Roy, if you could maybe put the other perspective on it, what a woman really wants from a man at some point.
I tell you, listen, I'll give you a simple answer to that. She wants a man not to need her. She wants a man to be so full of love that he doesn't need any from her. You know what happens then? A woman will love a man who doesn't need love. So he gets it anyway. You see? It's not a sexual love. Then he can have all the sex he wants. No. Then he'd ruin it. Because I've seen men start out like that, and then a woman thinking, well, this is a nice man, and all of a sudden, the fact that she likes him goes, his ego, and out comes the demon of the underwear. And that's the end of the relationship. Pardon me for saying that. That's as rude as I get. You see that? And that destroys a woman. For instance, I know a man who had liked a prostitute, and he was very gentlemanly with her. And prostitutes are not bad people. They're just destroyed. Girls have been destroyed. And won't give you the story how they get that way, but the point is, they've been violated, and they don't know how. They may even enjoy degrading sex as they degrading men as they degrade themselves. See, because they have this compulsion to give men what they want, but knowing that it will destroy them. But they're self-destructing anyway, don't you see? They walk away with this contempt, and then a strong sexual feeling comes from being angry. You understand that sin, all sin is sensual. All sin is sensual. If it isn't food, it's sex. If it's sex, it's food. You see, it's a sensual thing. It has to be satisfied. But the reproductiveness of sex is essential to it because you're dying. The anger and the hate and the contempt that you feel, you see, is blame. It's pride. See? Not looking at yourself, looking at the other person, not seeing your own weakness, all that sort of thing. And so therefore, when the soul dies, as the soul dies, the sensuality, it's just like, how can I say this? Why are human beings so sexually active? There's a simple answer. A rhinoceros only has sex once every 3 years. Why? Because they're a species that's very hardy, and if they have sex like salmon or herring, they have 250,000 offspring. See, their chances of dying are smaller. So if they had the same amount of offspring, there'd be billions of rhinos. You see? So the order is, we just need replacements every 3 years. And it's the way it is. The greater the chance of dying, being eaten, like herring, 250,000 eggs, the chances of survival is enough to perpetuate the population. But 250,000 worth. A chicken, you can have 300 chicks every year because they get eaten a lot. See, and so therefore the threat to existence determines the multiple of the sexual activity. I hope I said that well, but you see the point. And human beings, the same thing is the more you sin, the more stronger the sex impulses. You see? And when those sexual impulses are gratified, when it's simply the expression of sin. So if a man falls in love with you, he's not falling in love, he's falling from love. And so therefore, his desire for you is sensual, not sensible. See? And therefore, he's raping you and violating you. And so but he has use for you, and once you discover he has use for you, you outuse the user. You can't help but that, because the only love you're going to get. That's the only advantage you're going to get. This is all psychological. You're going to outuse the user. See that? It's a game. There's no love in marriage. There's no love in all those relationships. If you can see it on the television, you can see it in your own life. You bring it on yourself. You don't understand the mess you made of your life, because these dynamics, these forces are working all the time. And you don't see them working. They drive you, they control you, they multiply you. But then you multiply children in the world, there's no love in it. There's no love for your children, or you love them too much to hold on to them. See? To feed on them. You get security from them. See, it's all ego. The children recognize they don't want to be possessed. They hate you. Oh, they hate you. Oh, now they feel guilty. Now they love you. Oh, they hate you. They love you. So some of them never want to see you again, and some can't get away from you. Is that right? You see how that is? It's hell. Hello? Who's following me so far? You see all the variations of the theme? So now, so hypnosis is the art of persuasion. In other words, it's a transference of the conditioning. And now, when I ask some volunteers to come up here later on, I'm only playing with one part of the mind. I have to be careful not to transgress that. Because, you see, because having access to that, I also am close to the soul. So I can only make you change your shoes around or do something silly, and that's okay because it's not a sin. I'm just playing with your conditioning. And then you can see a person making excuses for it because they don't want to see they can be influenced by anybody else, see. But it's harmless, and it won't do any harm. But if I said, well, go steal something, or, go ahead and take that from your dad. He doesn't. Whatever it is that's sin, whatever constitutes a sin. Sin is there's laws of the heart, there's laws of the spirit. And every human being, if they're going to be called human, has to understand that it comes from God. That's what makes you godly. And if you obey that, if you know what those laws are, starting with the one I'm going to show you in a few moments, if you understand that basic law that helps you to hold, it's called faith. And if you hold fast to what you know is right in your heart, you search for what's right, you find salvation, and you hold fast to it, then you can never be tempted. You have a sovereign control over the thoughts and feelings that other people are able to awaken. And if you don't have that modifying influence, the inner modifying influence, if you don't have that, if you don't have a relationship with God, then they can go all the way with you. They can say, well, you should, then you'll believe it, because you tend to still believe lies because you haven't believed into the truth yet. See, when Adam believed the woman, and woman believed the serpent, he believed, it's a belief thing. He doubted God and believed the serpent. He doubted. Doubt is the separation. See, the deed, the doing of it, the eating of the fruit, sets up the conditioning. The minute you can entertain it and you can let it go. So some people might say, is having sexual thoughts a sin? No, because everybody has those. Jesus said it perfectly. He says, who has it in his mind has already committed it. Who indulges it, the translation could be better. Who plays with it, who savors it in his mind, who descends into the mind and enjoys it and savors it, that's the sin. Because then is the arousal to do it. You see? So if you understand something very simple, evil exists in two places, outside you and inside you. Once it gets inside you through sin, it has control over both faculties. It has control over your conditioning and the solution to your problem. Paxil, schmaxil. Even if it's Paxil is not a solution to a problem. Drugs are not a solution to your problem. It's the next problem. And so therefore, what you have in America today is the encouragement to sin. For example, sex. Then you have unwanted children. Then comes the solution, kill your baby. All right? But do you understand how it's progressive involvement? So therefore, you're worse off, but that doesn't cure the fact that you're still promiscuous. See? So then you have depression, or then the doctor will give you drugs, or you go to the local pusher and get drugs. But that also is a reinforcement of your problem. You're getting worse and worse. And now I'm going to tell you what's happening to America. Basically, you've heard me say it so many times before. There is a conspiracy right at the very top somewhere, and you don't know who that is. But it trickles down to everybody, like Eve trickles down to everybody. The mother of all living, we all have that same problem. It's a trickle-down psychology. Psychology professors don't know they're being acted through. Psychiatrists don't know they're being acted through. Politicians sometimes don't know they're being acted, they're well-meaning. University professors, useful idiots. Unwitting dupes. See, what it is it's slowly but surely, the whole society is being seduced and comforted. Seduced, welfare. Oh, the sicker we become, now we need to have Social Security, make us secure. Now we need Medicare to cure all our illnesses. But our illnesses are getting worse and worse and worse until you can't afford all the medicines, but nobody will be able to afford the medicines because everybody will be sick. And then you have a socialist state, a mindless socialist state. The solutions to the problems are the real, that create bigger ones because they're the wrong answers. The right answer is the spiritual one. But if you give people the spiritual answer, then who has the power? Jesus comes to give a spiritual answer. But then he takes away from the... Jesus is basically a politician, a spiritual emissary. In other words, he represents a body politic, a heavenly body politic, the kingdom of heaven, juxtaposed to the kingdoms of the world. There are different varieties, cannibal kingdoms, Arab kingdoms, sheikdoms. There's all kinds. But they're all variations of the same delusions of grandeur. Cannibals feel proud in their way. They cut people's heads off and shrink them. And you see? So if a cannibal has got a depression, he goes to his cannibal shrink, the witch doctor. And the witch doctor will say, well, the reason why you feel depressed and you haven't achieved enough, you need to eat 3 people this week instead of 2 people. That will make you feel better. And you'd believe it. See? So you become more of a cannibal. Oh, well, then you're more of a cannibal, everybody loves you. You're an achiever in the cannibal kingdom. You might even get to be cannibal king. See? But you see, it's all bass backwards. But once you start to wake up, once you start to come out of your thinking, you have that wonderful ability to override your conditioning. You have a power because of a relationship with God you never had before. And you can't do it without Him. You see, you can't break out of your spell. You can't cure your problems because you'll always be if you don't seek that as the problem, which is overcome your conditioning and overcome your obedience to that which is in the world that services you, see, your ego. Until you understand that, nothing's going to change. So the fellow with a beautiful mind didn't have a beautiful mind because he couldn't fix his own mind. He could fix everything else, but he couldn't fix... And you can't fix your mind, you can't fix yourself because you never made you. See? You didn't create you. The only thing that's wrong with you is your separation from the Creator. That's the only thing that's wrong with you. Once that link is forged and there's union, all the other problems take care of themselves. Most of your illnesses will disappear. And if there are illnesses that don't disappear on that, you'll know who to go to and how to deal with it. You see? And even that's right. You'll be guided to the right people. There's a very interesting thing about being guided to the right people. Because, misery loves company. I mean, I don't know how to say it, but the tendency is for when you're not in a good frame of mind to avoid people who are in a right frame of mind and to believe wrong people rather than right people. To take bad advice and rather than good advice, because the bad advice somehow, or the wrong kind of people look right and the right kind of people look wrong. You'll even marry the wrong woman. You'll even marry the wrong man. As a matter of fact, we all marry the wrong woman, and we all marry the wrong man. Except my wife didn't. She married the right man. Lucky for her, that's what I can say. But I wasn't right at the time. See, I wasn't as wrong as most people. That's it. I had a conscience that clicks in very quickly. I see what I'm doing wrong. See, that's it. I get it. I get it quickly. You don't have to rub my nose in it, see. But I will tell you this. Let me just give you some, and then we'll take some calls in a minute. I'll just give you a warning, gentlemen, that if you the mistake you make with your lady, the mistake you make, bear with me, it may take the rest of your life to straighten it out. Because see, once you've disappointed a woman, it takes a long time, well, for you to find what it is that disappointed her, because you don't understand in the beginning. And so you keep on disappointing her, trying to appoint her. You see? Trying to make it right with her. Always looking for where it was when you first fell in love, because that was the most exciting, you know. And because you want from her what isn't good to give. That's what you got in the beginning, and you want more and more and more of it, you see. But even if you straighten up and you become a real person, she's going to still be rebellious. A woman is contrary. Women don't think like men do. See, I can only just say this to the ladies in the audience, that even if you know, a lot of you ladies know what I'm talking about, in the sense that you know what right is, but even if you had a good man, there's something that compels you to keep testing him. Is that right, ladies? See, assume you got a decent man, but the point is, a decent man needs the testing. So don't think suddenly you're okay. Because even though you may be okay in spirit, you still have to overcome your conditioning to her nagging and seducing. She cannot help but play the game. That's what you've trained her to do. That's what you've commanded her. That's what you've loved her for. That's what you value her for. Follow that? So therefore, she's also conditioned to play that role. So therefore, when you stop having sex, for example, because you don't use her anymore, because you love her, she'll think that you having sex with Roy Masters or something. See? She'll accuse you of, she'll think there's something wrong with you, because she feels like she's been disempowered. See? You don't love her anymore. But when you loved her, she hated you for that. See? And when she hated you for that, she felt guilty. And when she felt guilty, she gave you more love, which turned you into a beast, which made you hate her. It made her hate you again. You see, it's a vicious cycle. See? So you have to withstand the assaults. You have to constantly withstand the temptations and the betrayals, setting you up to fail all the time. Women have a tendency to set you up to fail all the time. And so when men become politicians, that's what they do. Clinton set us all up to fail. You know that, don't you? Whole country. What a glory, what a score that was. He betrayed a whole country of men. So that man was a man-hater. See, it was just like his mother. Exactly. Hated men, hated the military, hated America, hated everything. And that's why he was easily programmed when he went to Russia. It only takes a second to program a man who has a discontent. You understand that? Didn't need a lot of programming, did he? Got it? You didn't have to go to a brainwashing camp for that. You and I would have to go brainwashing camp. We have to be drilled and traumatized, and then maybe we could convert it, and they'd kill us if we weren't converted. That's what they do. The ones that won't get converted, and they're not successful, you never see them again. But a person who's discontent, is easily converted. Right? And so that's the reason why women have resentments towards their husbands, and because the husbands disappoint. But since the children are bonded to the mother, they think what mother thinks. So it's easy for a mother to make a child hate his father. See? In other words, she can feed the discontent she already put in there. See that? And just to give an example of this, what they do in the public schools, they start a program where they talk to the children about the problems they have with their parents. And when they start to talk about the problems they have with their parents, then they sympathize with that. They're getting to your children. See that? And so therefore, it's the snake in the grass principle. You understand these principles. So you know, when I first got married, I can just do a little personal stuff, I had to beat people away from my wife because they understood the nature of a discontent. And she would attract all the wrong kinds of people. And so, but knowing that, had I not done what I did, picked up the phone, stay away or I'll be on your doorstep. You won't like it when I'm on your doorstep. Frighten them all away. See? Good thing. Because otherwise they're inviting me, they're coming into your house. You see? And you because your lack of wisdom, you're empowering that. You're allowing for it. You're empowering for it. If you allow your kids to have the wrong kind of friends, you're empowering their rebellion. And the kids don't understand that. That's why you must watch out for the kind of friends your children have. You have to be very astute. So when David would bring a friend home, I say, look, this is my rule. The right must rule. You either influence him for the good, I speak to David, or you lead my son to the good. Otherwise, you're not welcome in this house. I'll be watching. Not that it do much good, because he went astray anyway. Because when you get old enough, you know. But he's back, you know. He's back. I've got all my kids still. And I go through my sufferings. But the secret of life is to learn to deal with your... Let me just quickly touch on this point. And if I know I'm keeping everybody waiting, but there's one thing a lesson I want to emphasize here. All the sufferings of your past, all the mistakes you ever made, all the loves that ruined you, all the hate that made you need love that ruined you, the hates that ruined you, the love that ruined you. These are all layers and layers and layers of bitterness and being mortal and being transmogrified, transcending downward. All of these layers that eventually lead you to your death, spiritual death and physical death. You don't have to worry about the past. The psychiatry is wrong to go to the past first. What you need is the ever-present. Now, what you need is that's called salvation. Salvation is not the past. It's not the future. It is the now. You see, and so therefore, you have to come to the now. But where are you? You're in the future. If he said that to me, I'll say that to him. You see? You're in the past. You know, chopping off people's heads. You know, sentencing them like in the court of your mind, you know. You're in the past and the future because there is no real past, it's just an illusion. You have to come out of your head where you think of the past or you think about the future and you're thinking of the past and you're thinking about the future. And you have to come to the present. And in that present, a light shines on everything. And it will bring about what we call repentance of the ego, soul. When the soul turns from its rebellion and cries and becomes one with the Creator, now you have power, sovereignty over all of your problems, but not all right away. How do you overcome the problems? How do you overcome your problems with this power? Through forgiving, patient endurance. Through patience possess ye your soul. This is absolutely flawless psychiatry, which doesn't need psychiatry. It's just flawless. control, because it's obedience through all the things you now suffer. First of all, you suffer persecution because you stand out. So now you suffer for what you don't deserve, where you suffered where you did deserve it. See? So you've got two sufferings. See? You've got your old conditioning to overcome, and then you've got persecution for being a new person. But that's not hard. You see? That's not be hard, because that's how you undo. Now, here's the hypnosis part of it, and the conditioning part. That a tree dies from the top down. See? And so therefore, if you cut to the root of something, the symptoms, the tree dies from the top. You starve its root, and then the symptoms start disappearing. See? You have an evil tree, and you keep feeding it with anger and resentment, love and hate. If you learn to find that love in your heart, you can't hate and you don't need love. See? Although there's a temptation to hate, which is found in that little word called resentment. Resentment is hate. Don't ever think it otherwise. I know you think that resentment is normal. Oh, I resent this and I resent that. No. Resentment, 1,000 resentments, let's put it in a scale, equals one hate. One big hate. And a big disease. And a big depression. And a big cancer. See? So, but if you forbear to feed the evil tree, remember I said all suggestions begin, if parlor hypnosis, if I don't forget to remove the suggestions, that goes away. It's got to be reinforced. Suggestions and a way of life must be reinforced. So therefore, you have the power to stop the reinforcement and to give up resentment. The moment you start, now, you've got plenty of practice. All day long, things are going to irritate you. The guy that gives you a finger on the freeway. Go after him and give it to him back. That's what I said. No. Now, you understand the little the betrayals, the cruelties, the looks, the people using you, cheating you, lying about you. All that, it always will be temptation, the opportunities. If you deal with it, you can see the resentment coming and you just let it pass. If that happens, your symptoms will start, your headaches will disappear, your relationship with your children will improve, slowly but surely, or you become a new person. Never stop that for the rest of your life. It's the law. It is forgiveness. Look what the Lord's Prayer says now. This is more than just words. Forgive us as we forgive. See, we already been. Once you experience salvation and repentance, you've been forgiven. Therefore, do likewise, because then you show the face of good to others. And so when they come against you and try to exploit your weakness, which is their custom, and feel justified because you make a fool of yourself, when you hold up a light, suddenly they run into a brick wall, and you're not mean, you don't do to them what they did to you. They just suddenly feel this wall of goodness. It makes them feel ashamed. It holds up a mirror. It makes them see themselves. And if they're your enemy, they can't get you. And if there's any good in them, you bring them to salvation. Maybe not right away, but they'll keep trying you, and after a while they start to see your inner strength, feel ashamed, but somehow they like that. It's a good shame, because you're not damning them, you're not degrading them, you're just awakening them to who they are. See? You see? You're not condemning, you're not condoning. All I do is describe all this, and my $12 watch. It took me an hour and 45 minutes. Now I'll drink some water and take questions. Skin off your nose.
Can you hear me all right? Good. Thank you. Thank you for coming down and making the effort to visit us here. I want to speak to the idea of transference because I feel it's an important one for me to get.
Yes.
All of my working life, I've had issues with people in authority, superiors, officers, bosses, etc. I recently experienced a retaliatory firing. All of my life, I've had issues at cross purposes with my fathers. We've just never got on. Okay? Is there a connection there at all?
Probably.
Is there
Most likely. If you've resented your father, then you either become your father to other people, you become the bully. Let's say your father's a bully. I don't know if he was or not, imagine so. Then you either become the bully or you're submissive to bullies. That's the only choice you got. And it's completely unconscious, you cannot stop yourself.
Well, I never go along to get along, and I don't let these people intimidate me. So I don't really, it's a tremendous price I have to pay in terms of my work.
Well, then am I hearing you say that you've overcome the resentment towards your dad, therefore you deal with things with dignity?
That's my goal. I can't say I do that every time.
Are you succeeding? I mean, I know it's your goal, so dignity, this process of becoming perfect ends the day you leave this earth. So you are becoming perfect every moment. At any point you leave this earth, you take that perfection with you. See, so it's a matter of not becoming perfect all of a sudden, but your soul is saved. And therefore you manifest your perfection through all the things you suffer. See, now you learn to endure them with the dignity that shines so the whole world can see like a lamp on the hill.
And not to overreact by my words.
Overreacting is weakness. You only feed yourself to the problem and become a problem to yourself. So therefore, I don't know how you are. I'm not quite sure I understand the question, actually, because I don't know. But I can only make those comments. Either you're dealing with things properly, and people will persecute you. You're not like everybody else, and the boss. If the boss is a tyrant, and you shine. You won't fit. If you're not a lackey, if you don't shine his shoes, if you don't submit and shake in your boots like everybody else, tyrants like those kind of people working for them. Then you don't fit. You get fired. But then every now and then you might find a boss who, when you stand up to him with dignity, says, "I like that person." They just test you to see if you have strength. And if you stand tall in the saddle and say, "Excuse me, sir, but I don't agree with that decision you just made." See? And you say it just like that. Not worry whether you lose your job, not worrying about the outcome, just because it's right.
Right.
And then he may yell at you a little bit, and you hold your ground. He's still testing you. See, he may still test you. And when you don't lose your ground, and you still stand there with your merry eyes twinkling, just innocent, then that person, you might find yourself promoted. But you may find yourself fired too. But if you find yourself, if you find yourself fired, it's not a place you need to be.
And as far as the nattering that comes from well-meaning parents and family and friends, just dismiss it. What do you do with that?
You do with it. You just let it roll off you like water off a duck's back. You see, you mean the criticism? You're not like the rest of the family. I have a brother.
No, not at all. No.
He said, "My brother hates me." And listen, we come from the same. My mother was a nice woman. She was not very deep, but she was nice, decent. I don't know how my brother got to be the way he was. I put him through school. I took him to South Africa with me. I gave him an education because there wasn't enough money in the family for me to be a doctor. So I carried on with my profession, which is diamond cutting, over there, and sent him to Witwatersrand University. He became eventually an architect. I have no education at all. So, but I felt as an older brother that I took care of him. There's something about egos that when you're good to some people who don't deserve it, they actually feel slighted by your helping them. Do you understand what they actually feel belittled? Welfare does the same thing. The reason why you have so much in the minorities in who get the welfare in the inner cities is that when you give people to Not that all people are not undeserving, don't get me wrong, but generally speaking, people are undeserving of help. You don't understand that you're dealing with egos. So therefore, when you are sorry for them, and you have government programs to help people, to make an even playing field, so you think if you can give them more money, their lives will be better. Clinton is considering doing that for the third world countries. He doesn't know. Does he know what he's saying? I think he understands how we're going to finance our own destruction, as we almost financed our own destruction by welfare. You see, we're creating families, and we're creating murder and mayhem. And why I say murder and mayhem? Because look, let me show you how it works. I don't know if this helps any, but where I'm going with this, maybe this is not a subject, but somehow I've got to grasp it and run with it now. Is that when you give children, or when you get people what they don't deserve, what you're doing is robbing them of their own roots. See, they need the stress of life to struggle, and you're going to help them. You only help them just a little bit to help them. See, when you see them moving in the right direction, you encourage it. When you see them moving towards independence, you encourage it. But if you help them point blank, what you're doing is supporting the wrong in them, so they become dependent. They feel like they don't have to work. They feel for a moment they're free, like they don't have to, not like everybody else. The other guys, they have to slave their heart out. I can do what I like. See? You're discouraging the journey. It's not the money that you get, it's the journey from here to there. See? So that if you inherit a lot of money as a child, it destroys you, because it destroys the journey of character. The money is not the goal. It is the wise use of the money you earn. By the sweat of your brow you shall earn your bread. See? Now the reason for that is that now we come to the Garden of Eden again. The reason for this is because in paradise, good people can live in paradise. But bad people are ruined by paradise. You see, they're ruined by it. See, because paradise is only for now, we have to earn our way back. And so therefore God knew that we had to work by the sweat of our brow. However, if you take, listen carefully, because it's an order, a command, and everybody knows about work therapy. Something about work therapy that helps to heal people, gives them self-confidence. There's some truth to that. But let's say that you make a good living and you self-welfare. You see, you squander your money on wine. And what you're doing is just doing the same thing as welfare does to other people. You're actually becoming less and less of a human being. You see? And now, when it comes to the inner cities, where we have the most crime, is because several generations of welfare has produced egos that at first we feel like we're privileged. We feel like we're king. But after a while, it has a different effect. We feel dependent, beholden, angry. You see, the illusion wears off. And after a while, you see what's really happening. It's just like being married. At first, you feel important. And after a while, you see the little lady's got you. And then you want to kill her. See what I'm saying? And so that's what happens. And then after a while, instead of you giving them money, they feel humiliated by. Every time you give them money, they have contempt for you. And they hate you for it. But they're so addicted, they're going to take it anyway because they don't know how to get it for themselves. So therefore, the hate towards you grows, and now they don't want you to give it to them because it humiliates them. Now they're going to rob you. They're going to take it from you. Do you see that? You're going to revert. Now they still feel like a king at knife point, at gun point. They'll kill you for it. You see? Because that ego must be satisfied. It cannot be humiliated anymore. It has to do the humiliating. It still needs the money. It hasn't taken the journey. Why did I go with that, into that? But I didn't mean to go in that direction. Did I answer a question or not?
Certainly mine, maybe. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You see, when people come, when people come up to the stand, because we may get to some personal problems in a minute, but everything you say gives me a chance to say something more. And have you not said it, you wouldn't have heard it. It's important you hear the fine print, you see? And now, you don't have to learn anything I'm saying. When you leave here, you're going to say, what did that masked man say? Kimosabi? The Lone Ranger. Because when you leave here, you won't remember a thing. I'll tell you how you remember it. I'm drawing you a whole picture, right? Blah, 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 words. And as you're listening, little lights are going on, right? Am I correct? Your mind sometimes goes here and there and may forget what I'm talking about and meets me down the street a little bit later, 10 minutes. You're connecting. The little lights are flashing, the little connections are going on all the time, and your awareness is increasing. The whole idea of me speaking is not for you to learn anything. It's not necessary to remember anything I say. But if you just hear it, appreciate it, wow, I never thought of it that way. Now the next one comes along, oh, I never thought of that one, wow. Ooh, that goes on all day. When you leave here, your consciousness is not going to be the same. Now, how will you remember everything? You won't. You don't need to, because all I've done with that is help you to become a more conscious person. 10 years from now, you may rediscover for yourself what I said. You may remember then, oh, what Roy said that years ago. Now I understand what he's saying. It's still in there. All the words I'm saying, they're from, if you ever see a movie, I've seen movies, lots of movies, and I don't care for that much. I watch them. They're either good movies, they have a social redeeming message in it, or they don't. Most of them crummy. My grandkids and my wife watches them. But I tell you, when I watch one, if it's 20 years old, if you show me one scene, just a flicker, I saw that movie before. How do I know that? I mean, why would I even bother? It's there somewhere. It's there somewhere. I mean, I've seen thousands of movies since I was a kid. Show me one scene of any one of them, and I've seen that. I can walk through the living room, seen that. I don't remember the name of it. I just know I've seen it, to hell with it. Any one of the scenes. Where's this come? It's there. I didn't want to remember it. Didn't care to remember it. It's not preoccupying my mind. It's not taking up much space. Now, I'm telling you, there's something inside you that's hearing me, but on a much deeper level. You're remembering these things. It's there somewhere. Because you listen to me every day on the radio. You know, it's not just one time you hear me here in this seminar. You hear it often, in different ways, with people calling. And after a while, you get to understand my language, how I use words. See? And after a while, you begin to have a consciousness of it, and then after a while, you can forget that I exist. And I can drop dead tomorrow, and you'll be okay. And that's okay, too. It's the way it's supposed to be. And then you're going to rediscover, because as you start to grow in consciousness, you're going to see all these things. It's the same journey. You'll take the same journey. And I know these things because I'm on a journey, and I can just put it into English. I take the wordless word and put it into English. You're doing this wrong, or you're doing that wrong, and you can say, "Oh, I see that. Thank you," and you stand back. And the fact that you say, "Thank you, I needed that," the fact that you stand back and not offended, but the person who's offended goes the opposite way. Here's an opportunity. A man like myself, not that I'm special, but I'm a man like myself, which is a little unusual. It comes with a message. I'm no Jesus Christ, but I still have a message. I have a little light. And here's an opportunity. For the first time in a person's life, they have an opportunity to hear the truth. And what is the first truth they hear? The first truth they hear is the awful truth about them. What do? They have to hear. Everybody thinks that the truth is beautiful, because it makes them beautiful. You want to hear beautiful truths. You're gorgeous, you're wonderful, you're handsome, you're clever, you're smart. Oh, we worship you. You know. We want beautiful truths. That God loves us the way we are. The devil loves us the way we are. See? But we all want those beautiful truths. The first truth that you hear is the awful truth about yourself. Made plain. Without judgment. It's painful, but then some people it's painful. But there's a joy, there's a relief. It's true. First you may be offended. Just a little bit. You feel a twinge of, then you say, something says be angry, and then something says no, the man's right. See? Am I right about that? See? And that's what you don't realize, that you're changing loyalties. As I'm speaking, you're changing loyalties by agreeing that there's something wrong with you. Thank you for showing it to me. An ego can't stand that. The ego cannot stand that. It cannot stand to be corrected. It cannot be wrong. Have you ever been married to someone who's always right, never wrong? Yeah, thank you. There are people like that. You stand up to them and you immediately become the offender. See? You wonder why Jesus Christ was killed? Why messengers from the Creator are slaughtered all day long? Why the world is the state it's in? Because people tend to have their loyalty to evil. Even the church can be evil. Where do you think you find evil? You'll find it there too. Look at those priests, and look, just give a perfect example. What is a priest supposed to do? This is no criticism to the Catholic Church, but you see how the priest is more loyal to what feeds them, loyal to what trains them. See, it's almost like cops being covering for their buddies on the take. The whole idea of the law is perverted. If you allow in your own ranks, you cover for your buddies because you're loyal to your buddies. You're loyal to the system. You're loyal to your paycheck. Isn't it you should be loyal to what's right, the law representing it, and in one sense the legal aspect of it? And what about priest? One priest molested. The Catholic Church has been molested. Priests have been molesting kids for years. You've got two kinds of cowards there. You've got the bishops and the other priests who knew about it and covered it up. More loyal. Their sins are just as great. More loyal to their buddies and their paycheck, see, and their positions than they are to God. Cowards. Cowards. See, in other words, they're not good. They're not good lamps. They're not shining as they should. That's what happens with the institutions. More loyal to that which feeds them. More loyal to that which trained them. More loyal to the church than as the system that begat them. Their conditioning, their security, than they are to that which they say they serve. So therefore you'll find that in the church. And on top of that, what about the district attorneys? Who for 75 years known these things are going on, but you've got 60 million Catholics. So it is a dangerous political move if you want to be voted into office to go after the priests. Do you understand that? So you have cowards there too. But I guarantee you, if I spit on the sidewalk, they come after me because I'm a little guy. See? And they're coming after me, don't worry.
For additional information, please contact the Foundation of Human Understanding at P.O. Box 1000, Grants Pass, Oregon 97528. You may also call us toll-free at 1-800-877-3227. And be sure to visit us on the World Wide Web at www.fhu.com.